What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @A_Cuesta30. You can find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. And you can also visit the Facebook page, so you can go check out all the content that's up on there. If you're listening, as always, thank you from wherever you're listening from, whichever of the outlets you're listening from. Whether it be iHeartRadio, YouTube, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Play Music, or Apple Podcasts. Thank you, as always. With me today is a guy that I've now known for a pretty long time. It's weird to think about that he started teaching over at Manchester when I was still there as a student, but it is Coach Wes Moore. How's it going, Coach Moore?
Alex, fantastic. Thanks for having me. When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2007.
So that was, I started in 05, so...
You were a young pup then, still... You know what? The funniest things I remember about you is you were still a young teacher, which made you, like, more relatable to us. So you were still... I don't think you ever lost that, but you were kind of a wise ass, especially with the guys, because we try and be jerks, and you'd give it right back to us, which, you know, I think it helped your popularity in Manchester.
Well, I've the smart ass. I find that hard to believe, especially with you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I was a model, and I never talked out of line or did anything like that, Coach.
No, not even once.
No, never. So, if I remember correctly, did you play rugby in college?
Yeah, spent a little time with some rugby and track in college.
Because one of the things I remember about you is I played football senior year instead of running cross country. I think you just took the football and whipped it at one of our guys like 1,000 miles an hour, a rugby toss, and we were like, Jesus.
Well, we wanted you, I think we were trying to bring you back over to cross country, that's why.
No, well, cross country hurt me. So, anyway, where can people find you? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want to throw out there.
Twitter at CoachMoore19. That's pretty much where I am.
That's good. Keeping social media at a minimum is always smart in this day and age. But yeah, so you're Manchester High School, my alma mater. You are the head women's coach of soccer and also women's indoor and outdoor track and field, which indoor is actually, and even outdoor for track and field, me coming from that program of both of them, especially indoors, pretty big shoes to fill, considering that Coach Musoff was a legend for indoor, starting the program, delivering a state championship. How's it been kind of filling those shoes?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome to be able to work with Muse because he was a legend. So, it kind of helped with our street cred because everyone still knows Muse, and it actually kind of made it a little bit easier working after him because people had an expectation coming in. We weren't selling a program. People know Manchester track. It's on the map going all the way, from Andrew Valman to the Conover and Musoff years. Rob Panicu with a stint there. Then now Griff running the show on the boys' side, along with me on the girls' side. So it's kind of had some pretty big names along the way. I just kind of got lucky and have learned from some excellent people.
Yeah, we've had a really good lineage of coaches. A great lineage of runners. You mentioned Andrew Valman. I know this last Hall of Fame inductee group in Manchester had two of our greatest runners going into it. Sonia Sullivan, who was there when I was, probably the best women's 400-meter hurdler we've ever seen. And she was just a beast, went over to Georgetown, ran over from Monmouth as well, University, so she had the pedigree. And then Ian Hahn, who was basically my mentor. Me being a distance runner, I got in touch and got to know Ian. He was gracious. He helped coach a little, but for the most part, he would just take me in the summer and just beat the hell out of me running-wise. And his whole thing was, he would just tell me all the time, because he went to Penn State to run, and Penn State's a really good program, and he'd just be like, dude, my records are slow, break them. Like, my goal is for you to break my records. And that was just typical Ian. So congrats to those two for getting in the Hall of Fame and everyone else that got in the Hall of Fame. it was a really good class this class around.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's awesome to see it going again, and getting some names in there, and hopefully sparking some life and getting some more inductees in.
Yeah, I'm calling for Andrew Dunbar in my class. He was unbelievable runner. Me and him together, he was a multiple short conference Ocean County champion in the 100 meter, 200 meter. Same time I was there. Guy was fantastic. He was great in states as well. Never won a state championship, but was damn close. So that's who I'm calling for the next inductee class. Andrew Dunbar needs to be in there.
I think Griff's on the committee. Whisper in his ear.
Yeah, well, I know Griff doesn't have too many fond memories of me because he was over coaching Jackson at the time, and I was busy beating some of his best runners in the 800, Monroe Kearns, who ended up being one of my good friends, went to Rutgers University, great runner. But me and him were buddies while we were there. But yeah, that was Griff's memory of me. And then I helped him out coaching a little when I got done in college, got through with college when he came over to Manchester. But we are lucky to have Griff. And we're also, Coach, we're lucky to have you because you were one of the guys I mentioned in some of the things going on. We're going to talk about a scandal involving your favorite school. But, I touched on a little bit on the scandals with Michigan State and Penn State or whatever. And, I just mentioned how my coaches in my experience, especially at the high school and the college level, Manchester and Marist. But Manchester, I never met a coach, coming from the ones that I had with Gerard O'Donnell, Rob Panicu, Tom Scheffler, and even knowing guys like Brian Slota, guys like that who never, ever put Manchester Township and the success of Manchester Township over the safety and the well-being of the athletes that they coached. And I really just want to thank you guys for that. And, you particularly, since you're here with me, because as I coach, you guys help shape me as a coach and what I want to model around how I wanted to treat my athletes. So thank you very much for just, instilling that type of stuff on me as a person.
Well, I appreciate that. You believe me, as you know and will know, I mean, you're definitely not doing it for the money. So,
oh no.
So you're doing it because you love it and you love the kids and you love the sport. So, you take that extra little bit of pride in it, and it's fun. The success is fun. Even the failures when you watch the kids grow from the failures. I mean, it's a pretty fulfilling job.
Absolutely. And, I've had my little taste in coaching, doing a little bit at the high school football and track, and then actually being an assistant coach collegiately here. And, yeah, there's something to be said about, as a player, we were both athletes, we were both players, but there's something to be said about just watching the success of your athletes when they actually execute something, especially the ones that kind of struggled getting something, and then they get a concept and they do it, and they just turn around and look at you with that pride and that beaming in their face, like with women's soccer. Like, if you're trying to teach a girl, like, you need to attack the headers, you need to go in there and get a header, and all of a sudden they go up and they have a perfect header and they turn around, they're like, I did it. Like, that face is like something you can't mimic the joy that they have.
No, it's that aha moment. It gives them a little reason and a little finalization for the practices at 6:30 in the morning, and the work that they put in, and then when it pays off, they glow.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to talk, definitely now we're going to get more into your athletes. Being the women's soccer coach, that is this upcoming season in the fall, you're obviously preparing in earnest for that. Talk a little bit about last season, how that shaped up, and your outlook going forward, and some of the girls that we should be looking forward to leading this team.
Yeah, well, last year was was the best season in school history. Won our first ever conference championship. Won B South for the first time ever. It was a good run. We had won our first ever short conference tournament game. We had our first ever short conference home game. So getting the program, reestablished on the map was awesome. And, following that up, this year is going to be a lot of fun. Last year we graduated 13 seniors. That's a pretty big chunk, hard to replace in a smaller school like Manchester. And especially some of the names. Julia Giacone went to Jacksonville on scholarship to play, and Aaliyah Moore on scholarship to Monmouth, and Daisha Baca is coming back from an injury, but she's going to be playing at Delaware State. So I mean, we're looking at 3 scholarship soccer players that we're replacing, along with leadership of 10 other seniors from there. So
now, one thing sorry to cut you off real quick, but I want to know if this observation you've made, because going to Manchester, you've been there for a while now. One observation I've always made is, as a school, we might be small, but we never lack talent. We lack, I don't know if it's the drive to come out and work hard. Some athletes that are great athletes don't come out for the sports, and then sometimes the ones that do have trouble being pushed. So you have some girls coming back. You obviously had a great group of 13 seniors. That's amazing. What is your challenge now with getting this new crop of girls to kind of buy into your system here?
Well, we want to make sure that they understand that that this year isn't a rebuilding year. That's a tough. If we're talking about the multi-million-dollar college sports, you can say that on ESPN, but it's hard to talk about a rebuilding year in high school sports, because I do have 3 seniors, and they are four-year varsity kids, and they played for the seniors last year, and to tell someone it's a rebuilding year, I mean, you kind of sometimes look at it like there's it doesn't matter if you win. So we're kind of trying to instill the idea that we're continuing to build, because it took a long time for us to get some respect, and then making a couple deep runs into the States, and then winning a conference and doing a little damage in the short conference, and having some scholarship kids. We want people to it's not done, and we're continuing to build. We got to get better every year. So that's what we want to make sure that these underclassmen are playing for the seniors, because at some point they're going to be the seniors and need the younger kids to be playing for them. So that was the big preseason push, and so far so good. They seem bought in, and they're pushing.
So one of the things I want you to mention, who are the girls you're going to be leaning on this year? Who are your 3 senior leaders, and some of the girls that we should be looking out for that you're going to expect to take some bigger roles and to now be leaders and to be goal scorers and to challenge every 50-50 in header? Who are those girls that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so our 3 senior captains, Taylor Hickey, Gabby Battiato, and Kaylee Sherry, they play all 3 different levels for me. From Gabby is one of my center backs, and Kaylee plays in the midfield, and Taylor actually switched positions. For us, she's been an outside back for 3 years, and now she's moving up to play in a holding mid spot for us. And they come, they're there every day, and they're working, and they're pushing, and when there's only 3 of them, it's actually harder sometimes, because there's a lot of eyes looking at them to see what to do, how to do it. Are they working hard? And there's less diversion. When there was 13 seniors, I mean, I'm sure you had a senior moment when you were like, I'm not gonna go all that hard today, or I have a headache today, and you could hide, kind of be off to the side a little bit. But with 3 seniors, I mean, all eyes are on you all the time. So they're doing a fantastic job for us. So far, we just started our scrimmage season, and then as for the rest of the team, we're looking, everything that we're going to be able to do is going to have to be generated. We're looking, being as young as we are, everything is going to have to be team based. Alita, who just graduated, is the all-time goal scorer and all-time points scorer in school history. So we're replacing a statistical monster. And this year we're looking at everything to be generated. We're going to play 7 sophomores, and we're going to play 2 freshmen. 4 juniors are going to get some time. So it's going to be a young team, but a couple of the names to really kind of look out for. Rachel Morris is a sophomore midfielder for us, and she actually, as a freshman, set the school record in single season assists last year. So she's not a puppy anymore. She's got to step up and kind of garner a lot of pressure. And I'm really lucky with my sophomore class. Liz Oliver, Kayla Drolowitz, and Sammy Gravatt. They're like 3 shutdown defenders that I think that we're really going to rely heavy on, in the back this year. We have a fantastic goalkeeping competition going on. I have two juniors that are both very good high school goalkeepers, Carly Polchak and Claire Saeed, and it's, I've gone through years where I've had to pull girls out of the hallway and just tell them to try to catch a ball. Now I have 2 that are legitimate, could play at most schools in the shore. So that's nice to have. But the sophomore Jenny Amaro and Brianna Battiato, Gabby's little sister, and Morgan Brussman, they're all sophomores, so we want to keep all these kids focused on this year, but also understand that there's a big picture for them because, you played high school sports and you were at a high level as a younger kid and it's hard, but it pays off when you get more varsity minutes, varsity time, varsity races by the time you're a senior. So, those sophomores are going to be huge, and 2 freshmen that are surprising us right now. Nicole Tremarchi and Mackenzie Placek are going to play up top for us, and in the midfield, freshmen that can step on in the varsity level. That's fantastic. And then we have a small junior class, but we're going to need them this year. Like I said, the 2 goalkeepers, Victoria Lebrecht and Kayla Baca, also in the midfield and up top for us. And we're gonna need them. And everything is team. When we break our huddle, it's Hawks on 3, family on 6. We're trying to do everything together. Because we don't have that individual anymore. There's not that stud, that horse, that the one that everyone is looking for. That was Aaliyah Moore. Everyone knew who she was when she came onto the field. If you wanted to beat us, you had to stop her. And this year, it's going to be passing. It's going to be team-based. It's going to be generated goals. So it's going to be different, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Now, I got to say, any of the girls that are listening, and I hope Coach Moore lets all of them know that he just shouted out the whole team, which there's nothing better than hearing that passion from a coach. Because if you're listening to Coach Moore, you could tell he's eats, sleeping, and breathing this every single night. He probably stays up 6 sometimes thinking about it, even though he knows he's going to have success. But if I could say one thing to some of the girls who are listening, I played 13 years of soccer, so I'm not a novice when it comes to understanding the game. What you girls need to understand is, yes, you might have lost a lot of leadership and a lot of talent, but buy in. That's the greatest weapon you have right now, is you have a coach that obviously knows success. He knows what he's doing. He's passionate. He's there for you girls. Buy in. Fight every single time you're on that field. Win every 50-50 ball. Challenge every header. Keep your shape. And just believe in everyone around you. If a girl is not playing well that day, don't get on her. Pick her up. Let coach do the coaching. Pick her up as her teammate, as her family, and as a Hawk. So that's the only message I have. I'm super proud of all the girls and doing things. Anytime our alma mater gets to do something well and we get to stick it to Toms River, to Jackson, to Brick, all these bigger areas that have always looked at us as their redheaded stepsister, it just makes me beam. So, good job to all the girls from last year, but let's step up again this year. Let's not take a step back. Let's dominate B-South again. Let's win the conference again. Let's win the county. Let's do what we do. And like Coach Moore said, let's establish Manchester as a juggernaut, because it's been way too long since we've been one, especially in soccer. So, it's been a while. So we'll move on. You are also the women's coach of indoor and outdoor track. Who are the athletes to watch out for there? Because I had to say, when I started following your Twitter, it was after soccer season, so I started following you. And you just had left and right posts of PRs, winning this, winning that. Who are some of the great athletes that have left and the great ones that are returning?
Well, it's the youth movement on the girls' side again, which is led by now going to be a sophomore, Jada Ellis, a sprinter for us, and she came in, and we heard about her, and we heard that she's pretty quick. And when I met her for the first time, she's tiny, and I was like, she's fast, she's going to be good. Give her a couple years. And then I saw her run, and I said, damn, she's fast now.
She's going to be good. Give her now and let her win.
Yeah, there's no going to be good. She's going to be amazing. She's very good now.
Is she one of your athletes that you kind of kept out of the Frost-Off meets just to keep her fresh, or did you give her that chance to have that dominant success at the Frost-Off meets?
Well, you know how that works, and we've always been believers in the freshman, sophomore, well, the freshman meets, especially for the freshmen. But yeah. She's well beyond that.
Yeah, I participated in the freshman meets, but come sophomore year, both Musoff and Scheffler were like, nah, you're not going to that. It's a waste of your time.
Right.
You got to get ready for counties. You got to get ready for conferences. Like, no.
And for Jada, that was what we went with. I mean, that we have a decent track history in Manchester.
Well, anyone that doesn't know, Coach Moore mentioned Andrew Valmon before. Go look him up. Little town of Manchester has a world record holder, one of the fastest 400-meter time runners in the history of the nation. He's a part of the 4x4 team that the world record still holds on today. So go look up Andrew Valmon. Fantastic athlete. Valmons are an amazing family, too. They're one of the best families in Manchester, bar none.
Well, Jada could be that next one. She stepped right in. She now owns the school record in the 100, the 200. The first time that she ran the 400, she broke the school record. She runs in the 4x1, the 4x4. She was a state sectional champion in the 100 as a freshman. She made it to the meet of champs in the 200. She probably, I might be a little biased, but had an unfortunate false start at groups. She would have won the group championship in the 100. Arguably more impressive than a sectional champion, depending on where you live anyway. But he was actually named first team all-shore as a freshman.
Wow. So she's basically the Jimmy Lawson of women's track right now.
She's scary. She's scary good, and is only going to be better. I know that she's put in some work over the summer, and she's gone to some camps, and she's only going to get better as she gets stronger. And
is she running cross country in the fall, or is she what sport does she do a sport in the fall?
She did kind of our special teams last year.
Okay.
Which we call our special teams. We get some kids to come out for cross country that don't run distance.
Yep.
But I think that she's going to focus on some technique stuff to be ready for indoor. So she's going to be just fine. But that's a big name to follow, because she's already got a little following going on right now throughout the state. I mean, she's good. She's going to be the real deal.
So that's a fun challenge to have when you have somebody so talented that it's kind of tempering them while letting them go, because you never want to let them, because not to toot my own horn, but as a freshman in high school, I was really good. I was one of the fastest milers in the state freshman milers. I think I was second behind Craig Fories, who ended up being an absolute monster, went to Michigan. My 2 mile was right around 10 flat. It was, I think, 10:01 by the final race. So it was like, I was good. 4:31 and 10:01 was good. It's kind of tempering that expectation. I found the coaches, Scheffler was very good at that with me, basically telling me, I was great too. I wrestled at West Virginia. Don't let your head get big. And I had Ian Hahn telling me 4:31's really slow. You need to become fast eventually. So it was like, I had that good background. Are you looking forward to that challenge of telling her, be as great as you can, but be as humble as you can in a way?
Yeah, you have to be with track, and I think that's one of the things that will benefit her greatly, is that she's the type of kid that will never give anyone any locker room material. So I mean, I hope that you pop around sometime in the winter or spring, Alex, and see her. And if I give you 5 guesses to pick out who she is, you won't pick her out.
I mean, I may honestly though, because one of our best Marist 400-meter runners, she's actually our 400-meter runner and hurdler is this woman by the name of Debbie Burke. She is maybe 4'11" and touches 100 pounds, maybe. So I can believe that those little powerhouses exist. She's a 55-second 400-meter runner, so she's the real deal.
Yeah. That's not too shabby either.
Yeah, no.
Well, it sounds a lot like Jada, but she's quiet and she doesn't draw attention to herself, and you see a lot of these 100-meter runners at the starting line, and they're doing their dances and they're jumping up and down and they're growling and they're grunting and they're shaking their stuff. That ain't her. She's just gonna get down in the blocks and then she burns them.
Sprinters are a different breed, though, because I've always said distance runners they're athletes in their own way, but for the most part, they can only run distance. Sprinters are athletes. They are they're kind of the football guys that realized that they were good at football but better at running, but they could still definitely go play if they wanted to. You know what I mean? They're those type of guys and girls that are just beast athletes, but they just happen to be fast, and that's a better outlet for them. That's how I always found the difference between sprinters and distance runners.
Yes, I think that's a pretty good one. And scary thing about Jada is, if we could ever really talk her into it, her best event might be an 800. I mean, she is.
It always is. It always is. But sprinters don't want to do it, and they don't realize that when you get to a high level, the 800 is a sprint.
Right. I mean, first time she ran the 400, which she set the school record in, she went 58.8.
Wow.
As a freshman, first time running it, so that gives you hey, she's got a chance to go 56.
So I'm not recruiting her to Marist, but I am telling her to come to Marist.
Yeah.
Would love to have her.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before there's going to be a long line for her.
That's fun.
But she goes, it's like I said, that's the youth movement. I mean, we have another going-to-be sophomore, Kiara Ali, who's a sprinter, who's 100, 200, 400, 4x1 kid. I think that we're going to have a pretty special 4x1 for the next 2 years. Kiara is a kid that doesn't even know how to run yet, and every year except for this year would be your stud number one. It's nice to have a stud number two. Kiara is, she's going to be very good, and she'll probably she's got legs for days, so she's going to end up being a 400-meter runner. When that clicks for her, like you were saying, that's going to be something. And I have one girl that's a utility runner, Kat D'Amato, and she runs anything, 100, 200, 400. She wants to run the 4x4. She loves the 4x4. So I can imagine that you who saw, you saw like some stars on the Manchester girls side, but we're getting close to being able to put together the whole thing. I mean, we have, we probably haven't had, we lost Deanna Martin, who was absolutely amazing. One of my top two favorite kids that I coached my whole life in any sport. She's actually going to Georgian Court to compete. But going back all the way to your time, you got Sonia, and then you had Dee. Those were your only hurdlers, and we got another sophomore, one of my soccer players, Liz Oliver. She's like a glutton. She loves the 400 hurdles, and that's a hard thing to sell. That's
the hardest event. I wrote a piece a while ago because I had my blog, Sports Opinions, and I had a piece a while ago about the hardest races in track, and the 400 hurdles is right up there with the steeplechase. Those are easily the two hardest because 400 hurdles is you're giving an effort of a hard 800 with obstacles. It's terrible.
Right. Yeah, you got to be a sick person to love that.
So have you brought her into training with the distance runners yet? Because that's the best way to become a great 400 hurdler.
Well, the segue to bring a tear to your eye. I mean, we had Rusco had a great career in college, and Schwartz and Chinnery.
So I coached Kim Schwartz over at Marist while I was here. She never got away from me. I coached her at Manchester and I coached her at Marist.
Well, so we had some spread out distance runners, but for the first time, I think in a long time, we're actually going to have a distance team.
That's great.
Gabby Wetzel's a junior. She's actually runs a lot, looks a lot like a Katie Chinnery, maybe a little bit higher top end speed. And she's putting herself into great spots. Oliver and Anna Omloff, who's going to be a sophomore. Only one senior, Destiny Frazino. I mean, they actually went out and they set the school record in the 4x8 last year, the first time that they ran it. So it's been a long time coming, and I like to see it because I think most of the time during track when you were there, I was mostly with the throwers.
Yeah, you were predominantly. You were coaching Carly Green and that whole crew over there, Megan Adibamowo, like that whole crew.
Ariel and all those guys.
Yep, those are great person. That was the one. That was a personality plus team. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, and that just go. I mean, we've been a thrower school for a long time.
Yeah.
From Chandler Copeland back to Megan Adibamowo and Carly and Ariel Parrish and
Kylie Simanowicz was pretty damn good.
Kylie, 40-foot shot putter, 124-foot discus thrower. And now to have the running and the jumping, Rachel Morris, we have a triple jumper again. We're 2 years away from Lyric Green, who was a state champion triple jumper. But then we still have some throwers, a young throwing group, and Kaylee Sherry, Sammy Gravatt, Morgan Brussman, Kaylee Calderon. So, I mean, we're actually looking that we might be able to win B-South, this coming season, and that's on the girls' track side. It's pretty tough for us, and Donovan is, they're strong on that side, and Jackson Liberty is strong on the girls' side, and we're going to be in that mix now, and it's more that youth movement. So they're keeping me in the game a little bit longer, and it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome, and that's exciting. Only advice I got to give to the distance girls, being former distance runner, and I was a sprinting coach over at Marist, but I helped coaching the distance girls and guys because I attached to them being a former distance runner. And I don't know if you preach this, but it's something that I've always told them. You want to run smart, but you got to be aggressive. Because it doesn't matter how fast or slow you go out, you're going to fade in the end. So don't go out tentative and scared to hold in for a kick. You're going to fade. It's all guts in the end anyway. Go out, be aggressive, because that's when you're going to run the best times. And that's it. So,
and the advice part, that's one thing I think that we're pretty humble across the board. So they will listen and they will take that advice. And I'm not a distance guru, but I am, just like soccer, where I'm lucky enough to have Vicky Trapp and Casey O'Connor. In the track side, Jason Tarabokia does the distance, and he's awesome.
Jay's a great dude overall. Me and Jay, we were the same age. We competed against each other. He's just a great overall dude.
Yep, and he's willing to listen too, because we have a distance guy. Griff. We've done a great job of combining programs, to kind of maximize our coaches. Because Griff is a fantastic. I mean, there was Musoff was the hurdle guy in the whole area, and now it's Griff. I mean, it doesn't matter what you have on day one. By the end of the season, you're going to have some hurdlers thanks to Griff, and and Chris Rash does the throws on the girl side, and Chef is still coaching, and he does. He's probably one of the best jump coaches in the state, and and he works hand in hand with both the boys and the girls. So it's awesome because everyone's willing to work together and all kind of shoot for the same goal of Manchester kids.
One thing I got to say about Tom Scheffler, and he'll probably not want any of the credit. He'll probably get mad that we're even mentioning him. I would love to have him on the podcast, but knowing him, he'll never come on.
Don't think so.
No, he'll just be like, hell no, why would I come on that? I don't know anything. But one thing about Chef I have to say, when he was a distance coach, he probably wasn't the most knowledgeable distance coach. He knew what he was doing. He worked his ass off. He always learned. Scheffler never walks into anything not knowing anything. That's one thing about him. He'll study his ass off. One thing about Thomas Scheffler, and I've had some great coaches coach me in my time, I've never had a better motivator in my life than Tom Scheffler. He I'd run through a brick wall for the guy. He could tell me to do that. He wouldn't even have to tell me. He'd have to look at me and look at the wall, and I'd do it. Still probably to this day. Never a better motivator in my life. And in terms of guys that you know cares, probably more than you do, it's Chef. Nobody cares about what's going on the field, on the track, wherever he is, on the mat. No one cares more than that guy. And that's one thing that's a testament to him just as a person.
Passionate is Chef.
Yeah, probably he's the most passionate person on the planet. But, Coach, we could talk about Manchester and all that all day, but I do want to get to some of the other things. I want to quickly touch on something you put out on Facebook that I completely agreed with. You said something about single sport versus multi-sport. Can you kind of recall the general gist of what your Facebook status was?
Yeah, I actually was listening to someone.
Was it Richard on the Fan?
On the Fan, yeah. Someone was on the Fan, and they were, I forget what they coached, and it didn't matter what they coached because, he was preaching to me the right stuff and talking about the specialization. These specialized athletes are going to be a downfall to the U.S. athletic system, and I kind of I agree with that. I think that these specialized athletes, it's not the best for their sport. It's not the best for them. It's not the best for their teams. It's one of those things that it's a huge uphill battle on a lot of levels because of the coaches that want you to be specialized and the cost of these sports that want to be specialized, and then the grandeur and the promises that you're going to be the next Division I athlete, stud, or Olympian, or NFL, or whatever it is. But I think that the majority of those top athletes that you watch on TV were not specialized athletes, and I kind of wish that some of those guys and those women would come back out. They would kind of be a part of that movement, but it's an uphill battle, to say the least.
And I always use the example of football players. For a lineman, what's going to get you better footwork than becoming a shot put thrower and a discus thrower? Nothing. There is nothing, because it's all foot technique. It's not strength. It's learning how to control the upper part of your body while the bottom part of your body's moving. I can't think of a better thing for a lineman or for a skill player. What's going to make you have a better first explosive step than being a sprinter and learning from a coach who knows how to teach proper technique? Or basketball players going to become a jumper so you can learn how to explode better. All these things, and I'm using track and field as the jump, but it's usually the battle of trying to get some of these athletes off season instead of going to play AAU and just do the same thing and hit your head against the wall 1,000 times, doing the same exact thing over and over again. Come and learn something new so then you become a more rounded athlete. That's always, and soccer players, go be mid-distance runners. You run 3 to 5 miles of friggin' soccer game anyway if you're doing it right. Go be a distance runner and gain more endurance so you can last a full 60 or 90 on the pitch. Am I wrong there?
No, I mean, listen, to me, some of the most specialized sports out there are soccer and basketball. And
baseball's terrible with that too.
Baseball's rough. As a soccer coach, though, I push my girls to do, find time and play your club soccer for sure, but do something else, and I'm not playing favorites because I am the track coach, but, to me, when you play basketball or you play soccer and it's that team sport and you're relying on someone else, and it's so easy to say that, oh, I missed that goal because it was a bad pass, or so-and-so didn't pass me the ball in the basketball game, or the ref sucks, or, whatever it is, there's always that. But you know what? You go out, you take that team athlete and you put them on the track. There's no bad pass. There's
no excuses. None.
If you suck, then you suck. If you're great, then you are great. It's not a team thing. It's individual, and it pays off to me when they're in those pressure situations in the team game, and there's 11 teammates on the field, or 5 teammates on the court, or whatever it's going to be. I think that to have those other experiences, it keeps your brain sharp, and and there's just more benefits from it. Besides all the stuff that you could have our trainer come on and, talk about the injuries and, I just think that the pros for playing multi-sports totally outweigh, the cons there. I mean, even if you're an NFL fan, I think 27 of the 32 first-round NFL picks played at least 2 sports in high school, and I think 21 of them played 3.
And if you look at it, who are some of the all-time great guys? You look at, we can remember Emmitt Smith. He was track and field in football in college. Rocket Ismail could have been an Olympian, played football.
Michael Carter was an Olympic shot putter.
Exactly. Deion Sanders was track and field as well. As well as, and then you look at Jameis Winston. He's obviously in trouble, but a fantastic athlete. He was a baseball player as well as a football player over at Florida State. These aren't John Elway, baseball and football. It's not uncommon. It's uncommon now, but it wasn't uncommon before for coaches to encourage that, because putting your athletes in different mental situations with different pressures only makes them stronger and better for whatever sport they focus on.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we'll touch on it in a few minutes. And as a Buckeye fan, I going just to Urban Meyer, because I follow a lot of what he does, and I follow the Buckeye recruiting trail. He looks, when he starts to rank his players, he looks for the multi-sport kid first.
Hell yeah.
And he openly says that when he goes out on the recruiting trail, when he speaks. So, you're looking at the second or, one of the top 3 football programs in the country, one of the most successful coaches of all time.
I think it's the second best football program in the country behind Alabama. I don't think it's not okay to say that.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
In terms of lineage, you got to give it to Bama right now. Like, I'm not a Bama fan, but you can't deny that they are the best right now.
They are good. It helps to play in a weak SEC right now, but I'm sure that's a whole other podcast in itself.
That is. But, I like Urban's approach. I like that it hasn't lost, because when you're coming from Bowling Green in Utah, when his 2 first coaching stints, you need to just find pure athletes and turn them into football players. And I think that's what his goal was, and now he just does it with athletes at a much higher and better level.
Yeah.
And we're going to now talk about that, because I'm really happy you brought that up, because that's a great transition. The one thing that I enjoy with having on guys like you, who aren't just New York fans of New York sports, is we get to touch on different things, which is nice. And we're going to talk, you are an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. They were ranked number 5 in the preseason poll, which I think is a little low, even though I think there's 2 teams in the Big Ten that might actually finish higher than you guys, even before the Urban Meyer stuff. You're going to hate me for that. But we're going to touch on the Urban Meyer stuff first. Obviously, I don't want to delve too much into it. His assistant wide receiver coach has been accused of domestic violence. He had an accusation on him before that was dropped. Urban Meyer came out. He denied it. Then he knew about it. He's as of yesterday, he was given only a 3-game suspension, to the chagrin of a lot of people. But I do have to say, my sister Christina Klein, I talked to her about this, and she brought up a great point, which people aren't going to like. She brought up a point saying that this is not the same. A lot of people are grouping this with Michigan State, Penn State, and I did as well. But it is not the same. These aren't defenseless kids we're talking about. We're talking about 2 adults in their own love life and their personal life. And if Urban Meyer would have overstepped the boundaries that people want him to overstep, who's to stop Courtney Smith from, when the cops show up, going, nothing was happening, and Urban looking like he has some mud on his face? Not defending Urban Meyer for not addressing it properly, but just a scenario there. I want to get your take on his 3-game suspension and the situation.
Yeah, personally, I believe that there is more to it, and
and just real quick, neither of us are probably dispelling the seriousness of domestic violence. We know how serious it is. I got to put that out there for anyone that's listening. We're not making excuses for Zachary Smith. We're not making excuses for Urban Meyer. We're just talking about all scenarios here. Keeping an open mind.
1,000%. I think that there's more to come. And, there's parts of it that just, it's easy to not like Ohio State. but I try to look at it from both views, and I look at it, he's the football coach, and when they go through the timeline, and some of this stuff is so muddled, and you don't know what's real and what's not, but to me, it sounds like he handled some stuff the wrong way. He handled media the wrong way, but most of the reports say that he did follow protocol in terms of relaying information to his athletic department, and the police were made aware of it. And so to me, when the police were involved, it's now...
What more can you do? He's not a vigilante.
Right. It's out of the football coach's hands. I mean, it's one of those things. And again, you definitely don't want to, like you said, you're not downplaying any of the severity of the issue at hand. But, so let's just say, the police were involved. Urban Meyer jumps the gun and he fires Zach Smith years ago. The police do their investigation and find out that it was all wrong. Now, Zach Smith now can say, I'm suing for being unlawfully fired, or, fired for no reason. So, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't there. But to me, a lot of it, when the police got their hands on it, he wasn't charged. He didn't go to jail. The Ohio State athletic department was made aware. At the end of the day, the guy's a football coach. So, it's such a tightrope.
There's so much gray area, especially nowadays too, with the social media mobs. There is just the social media justice is probably the worst thing, because our justice system can't do their job because of the pressures that the social media mobs put on people. And I was listening at work. I listen to podcasts all day because I'm in construction. I don't want to hear all the banging all the time. So I throw my podcast and I listen as I work. I was listening to The Herd today, his episode from yesterday, Colin Cowherd, and he brought up a good point. Zach Smith, I believe his father or his grandfather, was someone who was a great mentor and took care of Urban Meyer early in his coaching career. And
he was an Ohio State legend.
Yeah, and bottom line, when somebody takes care of you, you take care of them. And that's just it. And Zach Smith is someone that's close to him, good friend of his. I don't know if he is anymore, but they were very close. And he had the incident earlier, I believe it was 2009, 2013, one of those dates. It got dropped. So he had no reason to let him go then. And maybe he was just trying, and Urban Meyer's a Christian, and he has been, and he's outspoken about it. Maybe he's just trying to give the guy a second chance and maybe hoping that he rehabbed. And who's to say he knew that this was still going on? So I was much stronger on this a few podcasts ago, talking about condemning Urban Meyer. And the more I hear about the facts and the more I hear about all sides, listen, I'm human. Humans change their mind. And if you don't change your mind and you're just rigid, then that's a you problem. And you're not living, I don't think you're living your life the right way. We're humans. We're allowed to change our mind and position. But that's the way I see it right now. It's a little iffy, and I think 3 games actually isn't a bad thing for him.
Yeah, and it all depends on who you're talking to, and as an Ohio State fan, I've learned to not be a big ESPN fan. ESPN is totally anti-Ohio State.
It's SECPN.
Yeah, it's SEC Kool-Aid there. So, I don't know how much, you don't really get both sides, except for Kirk Herbstreit, who he is a Buckeye, but he'll be the first one to rip them. But
I think Marty Smith does a good job because he just kind of gets into like the story side. But Marty Smith's a pretty honest dude. I like him.
Yeah, I would agree with that one for sure. But it's just one of those things that, if the media is going to villainize Urban Meyer, I was reading a lot today where there's a big push of people that believe that he will coach this year and that he will walk away because, it's kind of looks like he's going to fall on the sword, for the institution, for the school, and that he's gonna get that bad rap, and it's a shame. I hope that that's far from what's really going to happen. but you're going to read that he's a scumbag and that he's he's dirty and go back to his Florida stuff and he coached Aaron Hernandez, so he's he has to be a dirtbag. But let's be real. Is he squeaky clean? 100% no.
Who is though? Who is?
But how many when you're talking that level of college sports, the money makers, hoops and football, you're going to find very few guys that are squeaky clean, but it's just how's the media going to take it run. So the one thing I'll give Urban Meyer is he is fantastic in the locker room. I think that these kids are going to play for him, and I think you're going to see a pretty pissed off Ohio State team coming through. One, for their coach. Two, the fifth ranking is a little bit disrespectful, I think, but I'm good for some locker room material in August and September.
Without a doubt. And I was going to delve more into this, but with the 3-game suspension coming in, before when I gave you, we were setting up for this podcast, it was more of, what was going to be the outcome and how was it going to affect them. 3 games I don't think is going to affect this team negatively at all. I don't think it's going to be a distraction at all. I think he's set up, and I think I was going to talk about the coaching tree, but I think they're okay now that he's kind of being liberated with only these 3 games. So we're going to actually get away from all that negative crap. And we're going to go.
I do think that Tom Herman at Texas is going to take a hit for this because it's coming out. It kind of looks like he was kind of a snitch. Whether it was some sour grapes or some bitterness somewhere, but I do think that he's going to end up looking bad. But
part of me hopes not, because Texas doesn't need to be kicked any lower. That program is so low right now. For a great program that it was, God, the Big 12 in general. Can we just bring back the Big East and make them a Power 5? Because the Big 12 does not deserve it anymore.
No, they don't.
And that comes into, we're just going to kind of jump into, what is your college football playoff prediction? Who do you have going in right now?
Well, I don't think you can go all that crazy. I do think that Alabama is going to go in. I think that the SEC is not very strong. Alabama is in. Clemson is going to be in again. Dabo Swinney does a good job. I want to hate Clemson, but I kind of like Dabo Swinney. He's like a young guy, but he's old school. So I do think that they are going to be in. And Ohio State is going to win the Big Ten, and I believe that whoever comes in second in the Big Ten is going to make it. I think this will be the year that you're going to get the 2 Big Ten schools in. I think Wisconsin is strong. I think Penn State is strong. So I would say that would be my gamble there. I'm gonna go with 2 Big Ten schools and have whoever comes in with 1 loss there.
So this is where you're going to hate me, because my whole college football prediction, I made it a few weeks ago when I had Kyle Doctor on here. You probably know K-Doc. I had Kyle Doctor. He's been on here a few times. He's one of my sole writers on the blog. He's a great kid. But my prediction is kind of outlandish. You're going to hate it. You're definitely going to hate it. But I have Bama in, because if you don't have Bama in your college football playoff, then you don't understand how much NCAA likes having them in.
Right.
They're definitely in. I don't think Clemson's in. I don't. Maybe it's my bias being a fan of Florida State, but I think everyone's forgetting that DeAndre Francois is back, and DeAndre Francois was a Heisman hopeful last year before his injury. He is a extremely talented quarterback, and just because Florida State lost Derwin James doesn't mean that defense isn't as powerful as it always has been. So I think Florida State comes out of the ACC. They're my pick to get in. And then I agree with you that 2 teams are coming out of the Big Ten, but one of them is in Ohio State. I think Penn State's in. I think Penn State wins overall. I think Trace McSorley is another kid that he's a Heisman hopeful. He's talented. And I think they're going to be a better team, even with the subtraction of Barkley, because I brought up with K-Doc. I'll bring it again. Sometimes when you have that great, unbelievable player, he becomes so big that he's everything. And sometimes when you lose them, especially at the college level, you remember that you have a team again. And I think we saw this a little with Saquon last year because I watched some games where he was just targeted 35 times and they stopped Saquon and Penn State struggled. And that was it. Now Trace McSorley gets to spread the ball out a little more. They're a talented team up and down. I think they're in. And another team, and like I said, you're going to hate me for this, Harbaugh's coaching for his life.
You're life. Go Wisconsin? You went with Michigan?
I'm going with Michigan because they have the transfer quarterback. If he has any sort of semblance of quarterback play, he set up his team exactly like Alabama. Every other position is basically a top 5 player besides quarterback. And if they can get decent quarterback play, I think they're in.
Listen, as a 49er fan, I didn't even like when Harbaugh was there. The guy's a gimmick coach. He's still a guy that's going to be that. He's going to be that moron that goes for 2 and lines up 7 guys in the backfield. I mean, he's not built to win. He's not the guy to win there. Listen, I think the best rivalry in all sports is still Michigan-Ohio State, even though Michigan's been irrelevant for the last decade. I hope that they become something. I mean, I think that Wisconsin is.
You think it's better than Duke, North Carolina in basketball?
I do. I do.
Wow, that's ammo for Where's Boschman? Boschman's a basketball guy. I think he would argue with you on that.
But here's the difference in that rivalry. I mean, you pick your coach, the Dean Smiths and the Coach K's, Roy Williams. Those guys see each other, they're going to shake their hands and they're going to hug it out, and that's going to be what it's going to be. There's true hatred there between Ohio and Michigan and Ohio State and Michigan, and those coaches aren't going to. They don't like each other. Whether it's Urban Meyer and Jim Harbaugh, or you go back to Woody and Bo, and I mean, HBO did they did one of their specials a couple of years ago. You should watch it. It was Ohio State and Michigan.
I remember it. I didn't watch it, but I do remember it being promoted all the time.
It was awesome. I have it saved on my DVR forever. My wife wants to kill me, but it's.
Coach, I got to get you in an argument with Colton Gesser. He's a gigantic Michigan fan.
Michigan is irrelevant, and believe me, I wish they were, because I wish they were better, because I think the Big Ten is the best conference, top to bottom. But and you keep saying Heisman hopefuls. Don't forget, though, I think that you're going to see. I think that the Buckeyes have 2.
They do.
Heisman hopefuls. I mean, J.K. Dobbins is a freak. They will have the best backfield in the country with him and Mike Weber, and Dwayne Haskins. He's going to scare people in that Urban Meyer system that he's got there, because you like to think of the Tim Tebow's and that running option that the quarterback has, J.T. Barrett, who's been a rock for the Buckeyes, but then he was like, the smartest football player ever, but couldn't complete a pass more than 20 yards.
So he belonged more on Alabama than he did on Ohio State.
Right. Now, but now who beat Alabama? Cardell Jones did. A big arm. He can run when he needs to. And this Dwayne Haskins kid, he's the real deal. They have a very good wide receiving core finally, for the first time since like Mike Thomas was there. You look at all these Buckeyes in the NFL, and you don't see any wide receivers outside of Mike Thomas and Ted Ginn, who's 106 but still playing. But,
still a return man somehow.
Yeah, but you'll see.
I'm so happy I struck a nerve, because nothing's better. Nothing's better than that on these podcasts. But you gave me you're like Craig Leopard. When I had Leopard on, he just segued everything for me. So, you're just going to be the same exact way, and I love it. That you're going to segue for me, and you segued into the Niners because you're a Niners fan. You guys finally have a guy. You have Jimmy Garoppolo. And you got to be excited about this team coming up this year. Jimmy Garoppolo, you added Richard Sherman. Do you think you guys are a playoff team? Do you think you guys are a winning team? What do you got?
A winning team.
You're not going to pounce on the weak Seahawks? 'Cause I think the Seahawks are weak as hell right now.
Oh, I mean, Richard Sherman's he's going to have them ready for that game. I'm not worried about that. The Niners, for as record-wise as bad as they were, I mean, they have themselves a pretty rough schedule. I thought for being kind of for being a lower finishing team.
But you have the best looking quarterback in the NFL. They need to just put him on primetime.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. He just needs better choice in his dates, I think. But
hey, listen, it came out that was for charity. So that was a charity thing where she won a contest, and that went to a charity.
Oh, well.
So let's turn that light around. There you go.
We'll take that. But I think that the Rams are the team to beat in the West right now. I think Kyle Shanahan is the best young coach in the NFL. So I think that they're a year or two away from being a real NFC championship game contender. But I do think that that's going to be a pretty good turnaround because I think that their drafts have finally been good. They went away from just trying to find people to play on offense. They've gone defense in the beginning.
Yep.
The last 2 years. And Garoppolo, I mean, I think they got a diamond with Marquise Goodwin, and he's actually a nice guy. Pierre Garçon, who missed most of last year, he's old. But
he's just going to be a sturdy possession veteran.
Yep. I mean, you got to have some of them. I think they're deep in the backfield. I think that they're going to be, they're a team. They're an 8-9 win team this year, and I think that they're built for
the
10,
future.
11,
yeah.
12 in the next 2-3 years. So
now, two things. You're gonna make my cousin John Portaways' son Dan Portaways real happy. He's a Niners fan, so he's gonna like hearing this. But one thing scares me. Richard Sherman scares me. He really does. For the main reason, if you really study and watch Richard Sherman, he's not a corner. He's a glorified free safety. They played a cover 3 all the time, and he was the third guy sitting back in that Seahawks defense, and he was a free roamer on one side of the field, a third of the field. If you guys ask him to play a lot of man, I feel like Sherman might be exposed, and that scares me for you guys. So that's the only thing that scares me. What do you think of John Lynch as a GM? Has he been making the passing grade for you so far?
Yes, because he's not a win now guy. He's a young GM. He's he understands where he is. He's in one of the top 3 best franchises in NFL history. I mean, you got a 6 winner, and then you got 2 5 winners, and the 49ers are one of those teams with 5 Super Bowls, and they did it for a decade. So I think
they had the greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice, bar none,
and quarterback.
Montana's arguable. It's arguable because honestly, I hate him, but Tom Brady has done more with nothing than I've ever seen. Because his first 3 championships, can you name a wide receiver from his first 3 championships team?
Well,
I'll tell you one, Deion Branch and Tim Brown, not the good one. Those are 2 guys. He had nothing besides Kevin Falk. Really.
However, I would say this. The depth of the NFC when Montana and Young were doing this, and Montana, I mean, it was a different game.
All right, but Ricky Waters was one of the most forgotten great running backs in the history of the league. That guy doesn't get the credit he deserves for being an absolute stud running back.
How about Roger Craig
or even Garrison Hurst?
Tom Rathman.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Those teams were very star-studded that even great players were overshadowed. They were very much like the Michael Bulls, where Michael's the focal point, and you forget about Pippen, Rodman, Kukoc, all those other guys, Paxton, great players, Horace Grant, where Montana, Young, Rice kind of overshadowed all the other greatness on those teams.
They did, and I think to do it back pre some of these super teams in whatever sport you're going to have it in. I think it was more competitive. I mean, when the Niners were winning Super Bowls, the Giants were good. I mean, the Giants defense was filthy, and the Cowboys were.
That rivalry with the Cowboys was epic. It was epic.
Yeah, I mean, so
Well, Brady had Manning. Brady had Manning as a thorn in his side in Indy. They were very real. He had Pittsburgh was very real, and they're still very real. He definitely had some teams. Tennessee was very good with McNair. Rest in peace, Steve McNair. But McNair and Eddie George, Kevin Dyson, they were unbelievable. It's not to say that there wasn't. The AFC has been very deep. It's starting to thin out. It's thinned out the last 5 years. But even the Jets with Testaverde and Pennington were a thorn in his side. So it's tough. It's tough to argue because Montana has all the wins in the Super Bowl. But I will, maybe it's recency bias. But I think Tom Brady's, if not 1A. They got to share it. I think they share the title.
I'm good with going 1A.
Okay. So now that we agreed upon something, finally, we're going to go on to something we really agree on. We're going to talk about the Yanks. I was going to ask you about catching Boston, but let's be realistic. 8 games back at this point in the year in the loss column, they're not catching Boston. That's out. My thing right now is the importance of continuing to win games to get that home wild card, and I'm not going to lie. I'm not half as confident as I was before. I'm kind of scared, especially with the fact that we're without Judge, Sanchez, and Didi, and the Judge injury seems to just not be getting any better. Have the additions of Hap Lynn and Zach Britton alleviated any of the pressure on this team that makes it a little bit easier as a Yankees fan to breathe easy?
Yes. Unfortunately, you would like to see those, you would, at least me, I would have liked to have seen those additions made with the big name pitcher. I think that they needed to deal one piece of that youth to get that ace. I think that Hap, those guys are going to be good, but where they're not going to be good? They're not going to be good in a wild card game because they might not pitch. You got to get to a series before that. You're going to be able to have a solid deep lineup.
And it's Severino, Tanaka, or CeCe, and CeCe's hurt right now, so it's really Severino or Tanaka you're looking at, and neither of them have given me any confidence for that wild card game.
Yeah, Severino hasn't thrown a strike in a month, I don't think. So.
He had a decent outing last outing. It wasn't bad. It wasn't typical Sevy, but it wasn't bad. He got the win. I think he got through 6 solid, but he still gave up 2 runs, and that's not what we were used to earlier in the year.
No, and that's really it,
And you look at it now, they're starting Neil Walker and Shane Robinson in the outfield. Why hasn't Cashman either gone out and gone outfielder either? There's a lot going on that kind of scares me about this team right now.
Yeah, and actually, what are we looking at right now? Sabathia is pitching now. It's 2-2 with Baltimore. It's
a bad team that they should be crushing.
Yeah, and on paper, you get into a series, and if you can go, you're looking at Sabathia as your number 3. That's solid. It's I'd rather it be a little sexier and have him as your number 4. But to me, I kind of feel like they didn't know what to do because you probably had half of the media and half of the fans saying to go and get Manny Machado, and then you had the other half who were saying that you need to go out and get a pitcher, and they went out and did none of it. They got a sneaky pitcher, but I just think they're not going to be where they expected to be this year. They need to continue to build. I mean, because they really are scary young.
Yeah.
If they can get to a series, I'm not scared of playing Boston in a series.
But it's that one game. They're not built to win one game. They're built to win 4 out of 7.
Yeah, I would be more scared about getting Oakland or Seattle.
Seattle doesn't scare me as much because I think we could beat Paxton. Oakland scares the hell out of me because they're the hottest team in baseball.
They are.
So it's interesting. The Yanks are in a weird situation, and it's funny because the Mets are idiots. They should have traded DeGrom, and I think the Yankees, as much as they were saying Andujar wasn't available, let's be realistic. Andujar was available. Torres wasn't, Florial wasn't, but Andujar was available. He's a great hitter with fielding deficiencies at the hot spot in third base, which you really can't have. So I think he was available. I think the Mets just kind of dragged their feet. Bumgarner was never on the table. He was just kind of a piece that we wanted. So I don't know who besides those two they could have really went and gotten. So they were in a tough situation, but I got to say, this is the first time since Cashman has really been allowed to be a true GM, because before the past few years, he's just been told to go buy the best player. You're not allowed to be a real GM. Don't make real deals. Just go buy players. Since he's been able to be a GM, he's done the Chapman trade. He had Miller did the trade. He got a lot. He replenished the farm in a year, which is great general manager work. This is the first time since he's really been being a true hands-on GM that I've kind of doubted some of his moves. That's really how I see it right now.
Unless he's evil genius and he, he's looking bigger picture that this isn't the year. I mean, nobody likes Boston unless you're in Boston, and I mean, they are good.
They're the best team in baseball, and it's not. Astros took a step back, which is as expected. They're young guys. They won. They're kind of relaxing, but the Boston's the best team in baseball, and they should win it all. It shouldn't even be a question with the way they played all year.
I think that the only team that gives them a run is the Yanks. If the Yankees can get into a series with Boston, they can get that lineup. I mean,
the bullpen is great too. We only have to play 5 innings.
And so if your starters don't suck, I'm not telling you to be great. Just don't suck.
No more than 3 runs. You can't give up any more than 3 runs within your 5 innings, and then we're good.
And your lineup will give people hell. I mean, it's just what it is. But they got to hold on. They got to get a home game, and they got to get healthy.
I think Cashman is banking on Judge, Sanchez, and Didi all coming back with about 2-3 weeks left in the season, getting momentum and getting into that one playoff, winning it with that group, and then getting into the season. I think that's also why they're being so careful with all 3 of those guys and not rushing them back.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And why he's not making a move in the outfield, because when Judge does return, if you get a major league guy now, who do you send down? It's easy to send down Shane Robinson. It's easy to put Neil Walker back on the bench. It's not easy to go out and get Curtis Granderson, who's available, and then tell a guy who won a championship with you, who was a great Yankee at one point, thanks, but goodbye. You have to ride the bench now. It's tough. It's a tough situation.
Right.
So my outlook on the Yankees is I've got to trust Cashman. I got to trust him. That's it. We got to trust what he's doing.
I'm good with it too. I'm good with trusting. I'm good with trusting him right now because it's paid off, and I think that the moves that he's made have been good. I think that the moves that he made have been long term. Even the people after 3 weeks that were like, doubting Stanton and
out of their minds, they just don't know how Stanton plays.
No, I mean, it took him a minute to get used to playing in the microscope that is New York, but I mean,
he did the same thing last year in Miami. He just is a slow starter. After the All-Star break is when he kicks it in. It's exactly what we've seen.
And he's gonna, what's he at home run wise now?
I don't even know. I'll look at that because I think he's gonna get to 40. I think that's not even like a question. Let's see, Giancarlo Stanton. What are his stats? This is really professional of me. I mean, let's see, home runs. He's sitting at 32, and he has 81 ribbies. He's going to get to 40, and he's going to get near 100. Like, that's just, it is what it is. It's what he's going to do.
Yep.
So I'm iffy about the Yankees, but I'm still confident in what they can do. Are you the same way?
I'm totally the same way. I'm confident, they just got to get healthy. Get healthy. Get into the playoffs. This is not a team that you want to give a chip and a seat to. I mean, they're a team that could get in, and I don't know how you pitch to them. I don't know how you pitch to them in a 7-game series.
Hoping opposing managers feel the same way as you do. So one thing I've started to do at the end of my podcast is I've been sticking it to my guests to get a feel-good story out here. Did you research one? Do you have one prepared? If not, it's okay.
A little bit. It's probably like the cliche one. I think that the feel-good story is Big Al hitting dingers.
Al hitting dingers. Yeah, you know what? I agree with that. It's great because it just shows that the game is still fun. The game is still fun, and it's great to see the teams embrace him when they did the Little League. I think it was the Mets and Phillies that played, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you can't, you got Big Al, he's hitting dingers, I'd rather that be the front page of the Little League World Series rather than people questioning that 6'1", 220-pound kid from Puerto Rico or, the Daniel Montes of the world. This kid's athletic career is almost over.
Yeah, and and it sucks too when they do that to kids because do we forget that they're 12? Like, I know they're on TV, but do we forget, I would hate to be that kid who goes home and definitely watches SportsCenter because he's on it, and then goes and reads the paper because he wants to see him in the paper. Like, one of my favorite things in high school was to go check the paper so I could see the number that I knew I ran put in the friggin' Star Ledger or Asbury Park Press, which nobody reads. Yeah, this kid's on that, and then they have to read that? Like, that's not fair to those kids or their families.
Nope. But he's done the... I think he's done the late night circuit, and he's been, he's gotten some ESPN time, and
Big Al's got a YouTube career in front of him because he could just go and hit dingers and turn around and say that, and he'd have a YouTube career.
That's it. You look into Urban Meyer stuff and LaShawn McCoy stuff, and all the shenanigans in sports, and then you got Big Al hitting dingers, and if it makes you smile, that's really what it should be about.
Definitely, and my story is closer to home. I just, for me, it's Harry Ferrone and that 2003 team. We talked about the Manchester Hall of Fame. The 2003 women's softball team got in. Harry Ferrone, one of my favorite dudes. He was the TV video guy over at Manchester. He left to go to Jackson Liberty when they gave him an unbelievable studio, but he's just one of the overall coolest and nicest dudes. Was a great softball coach. That team was amazing. They deserved to get in. And just overall, Manchester bringing back the Hall of Fame. That is my feel-good story because we have such a great legacy of athletes that it was a shame, and teams, it was a shame that we weren't having one and acknowledging them. So kudos to Manchester to bringing it back. Congratulations to Harry Ferrone and that whole entire team. So with that concludes this episode of the Sports Opinions podcast. Thank you very much, Coach Moore, for coming on.
Hey, Cuesta, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Again, Coach Moore is the head women's coach of soccer and indoor and outdoor track and field at Manchester Township High School. Please go follow the successes and hope that we can repeat in soccer. Again, you want to give them your Twitter where people can find you?
At Coach Moore 19.
And again, I'm Alex Cuesta, your host. You can find me on Twitter at @A_Cuesta30 and also on Instagram with that same exact tag. You can find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. Visit the Facebook page and let your friends know this is fun, this is awesome. You can come on if you have sports opinions. Don't be shy. And you can find us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, YouTube, Google Play Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Forgot about the biggest one. But again, thank you for listening. This was the Sports Opinions podcast. Have a good one.